called to order. So, Kate, will you call the roll? Present.
Jennifer Peterson. Present. John Reardon.
Present.
Bobby Stauffer. Here. John Weitzel.
Here.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is approval of the March 8th meeting minutes.
And I might have something to say about that.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
If you did not have time to look at them and you don't feel comfortable approving them at this moment, which is my fault because I had them up on the website, but I didn't send them to you individually, and I apologize for that. We could always approve them next month. It's the window.
The ghost has something to say about that.
He's angry at me as well.
Does anyone want to make a motion at this time? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 8th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? They're approved.
All right.
The next item on the agenda is public comment on items that are on the agenda. And for the public that is here, for your information, the items on the agenda are an update on the Basin Creek Caretakers House, the Certified Local Government Final Report update, and those are the only two items that are on the agenda tonight. So if you have a comment on either of those agenda items, please come forward, state your name and your story. Alrighty then, we'll move on to the next agenda item. That is the Basin Creek Caretakers House project update. Kate, take it away.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have some good news about that. So we are moving ahead with the $100,000 Revitalizing Montana's Rural Heritage Grant that we received from the State Historic Preservation Office. And we decided that we're moving forward by revising the scope of work to include an interior cleanup, because it definitely needs it, and exterior work only. So we're going to shore up the outside of the building because it really needs it. There's a little bad news. We've decided to return the tourism grant from the Department of Commerce. I don't have the exact figure. It was between $14,000 and $15,000 because we would not be able to complete the work in time. The grant manager told me that without definite forward movement, like within what would be the next few weeks, essentially, they would be rescinding the grant anyway. So Angie from Public Works is working with us. She's revising the scope to include all the external work to shore up the building. And it's going to be going out to bid again by the end of this month, so April 27th to be exact. So another good thing about it is that part of the scope is that the Caretakers House must be on the National Register of Historic Places in order to receive the money and in order to actually complete the grant. So I will be working on that nomination, and I'll actually be working with the previous HPO, Mary. So we've talked about it, and thankfully, because it's a lot of work. She's really gung-ho. I mean, it was a pet project of hers, and obviously she was really, she loved it. So we are going to work together on creating a small district. So it's going to involve the Caretaker's House, the other house on the property that I believe the arborist lives in, the gazebo, and any other features on the property, archaeological features or other kinds of features that within the boundaries that we draw up, but we're going to need to keep it small due to time constraints for the grant. So that's what I have.
Any comments or questions for Kate? I do have a question myself, and that is, there's a SARTA, in addition to the $100,000, there's a SARTA grant, and that's all part of the monies that are available for the
Yes.
exterior improvements. Okay.
And that's still being utilized.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Julie
John.
Crane is involved, yeah.
John.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mitzi. My question is just basically an easy one and all that. What I am assuming here with this designation as an historical situation and all that, then monies and that will be available to virtually help finish that project. Is that correct? I know that nothing is for sure, but this makes our odds a lot better, correct?
Oh, definitely. And there's a possibility that we're doing a small district, but there's a possibility that we could expand it in the future as well to involve the whole park.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for your work. Appreciate it.
Well, that was fast. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Certified Local Government Final Report Update.
Okay. Well, thank you all for helping me out with getting the volunteer hours back to me, and hopefully we can get those completed and signed tonight. Obviously not from Mr. Hinnick, but I'm going to need his signature anyway, so that's totally fine. It's a little, wow. That was an angry one. So I've been able to put this together, obviously, by using previous minutes from the last 6 months of, of Historic Preservation Commission meetings. So I've been sort of able to piece together a cohesive report to get to SHPO. So I think it will be good. And it's due at the end of the month. So we've got plenty of time to get it ready. And yeah, and so this is the final report. So it's reporting out essentially last year's grant.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you. I'm sure nobody has any comment on that because we're all just bored silly with these yearly reports. So the next item on the agenda is, I guess we'll start with staff reports. Is there something else that you would like to discuss?
Yes, actually. So as we don't have any demo or design COAs this month, I wanted to approach the commission about one that we will definitely have to review next month. It's a residential home that's been vacant for quite some time. It's 1201 Steel Street. Now, what is it? It's the lower south? Lower west side, sorry, south of the college there. The house is very much contributing. I live nearby. It seems to be in fine condition. So it's not going to be a straightforward thing. So the owner has not come forward with a demo request yet. So, and he's totally amenable to allowing us to come in for a site visit. You know, evenings and weekends are best. So I would like to ask you who would, you know, if anybody would like to volunteer to come with me. So that's something that we can discuss. Okay, okay. Well, I figured we could talk about the when, you know, maybe next week. Which leads me to my next thing. I just wanted to thank Karen because she's purchased for me a very nice DSLR Canon camera with two, a wide angle and a telephoto lens, and which I definitely feel like you need in this position to get really good photos of buildings, and I didn't have one myself, and so thank you, Karen. And so hopefully that will come before we can make this site visit. And so I figure, yeah, as far as that's concerned, we can talk about that after the meeting and maybe get a chain going and figure out when the best time is and work with the homeowner as well. He doesn't live in the house. He lives next door, so the house is empty. One more thing, tomorrow, I'm sure most of you know Leslie Gilmore. She will be in town. She's a well-known historic preservation architect. She's invited me to make a few site visits to the buildings that I know that you've all reviewed for URA grants, the YMCA building, the John Noyes building, and the Kelly Block. So I'm very excited about seeing those buildings. I wish I had the camera, but I don't have it yet. So I just wanted to let you all know that that was happening as well. So she'll be here in Butte. So that's it for my report.
Thanks. John?
You and I visited after a meeting the other day and all that, and I went over and I was just, that 1201 steel is a place that belongs upright rather than down, you know? So I guess my question to you, is this building for sale, or is it just to be moved, or what is the procedure that we're going to use on this building to get it out of there? I looked and I think that would be an easy move. As you see, there's already one going on a couple blocks down the street. Is the fact, I mean, it's a larger building, it has some additions and all that stuff, but I think that we should do all we can to, and I know the saying is we can't save them all and all that, but I think that this is a great part of earlier Butte on the west side, that it would be interesting to, you know, have that, I guess, before the countdown, you know. I know we have to honor people's private properties and situations, but I mean, if he doesn't want to sell it and all that stuff, that it'd be basically a great steal and an investment for somebody. So.
You know, he's not sure exactly what he wants to do yet. He seems open, he seems suggestible. He's not even 100% sure that he wants to demo it. He wants a lawn for his kids, is what he said. And so I think that he is open to suggestions. We'll obviously follow the ordinance, and we'll use the ordinance as our guide. And I agree. I think that the best thing that can happen if he decides that he absolutely will not budge and he wants it to come down is that we get someone that will move it. Because I can't be sure, but I mean, I walk by it every day, and the house, it seems to be in good condition. It has good bones, most definitely. So we can talk to him.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mitzi. I just wanted to jump in. Madam Chair, I apologize. I just wanted to jump in really quick and, you know, just let everyone know that the property owner has contacted Kate. He's contacted the planning office as well, and he just needs to understand what the procedures are. And he has not made any formal application for anything yet. So this is all extremely conversational with this property owner, which is a great place to start. And so Kate's had great contact with him and great conversations so far, and you know, we'll continue to do that until there is an actual application for some action. Thank you.
Thank God.
Madam Chair?
John?
I just have a question on this. A couple months ago on that, when we went to the debacle down on State Street, and that was because of I can't remember what the deal was. They were talking about redoing a historic district down there. And I've always been under the impression that the west side over there was already designated a historic district in the Butte-Silver Bowl.
And that is correct, and that building is within the boundaries of the landmark district.
That's it. Okay, and then the west side.
So there's no question about its eligibility. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Bobby, oh, I hope we get to this when it actually comes up for review.
I had that address written down on the agenda. I was going to ask about it. I have lived a block away from it for 30 years, and I'm really happy that it's coming to us at this stage. And I think ideally it would be nice if it could be sold and fixed. Yeah. It has been vacant, but it does seem like it's in good shape. So I'm happy that we'll be able to tour it. And there's a huge lawn at West a block away as well, but we'll have to see. But I'm glad that we're starting the process really early and not far along. So thank you for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
I know John Reardon has an item that he wants to talk about, but I just wanted to mention something about items that I saw on the URA agenda. And I felt that at least one of them should have come before the Historic Preservation Commission, and it's because it's the sort of thing that would have come to us previously, and so I want to ensure that as we go forward, we continue the pattern that we had in the past. And two of them, one was for Lori Patrick's place on California. That had already been a project that we had looked at, and I didn't have time to see whether or not the windows were part of the original request. However, thank you for verifying that. I did see the place on 722 South Montana, and even though it talked about rebuilding the parapet, which was in the original, what was not in the original request from URA was new exterior doors. We are very concerned about exterior doors because those are, we feel, should be compatible with the period in which they were. They should not be vinyl. And so typically that would be something that we expect to see here. Even though it's the second go-round, every time they come with a new request, it's essentially the same as a fresh request on the first time. So I just wanted to put that into the record because that's what we expect and we wish to receive regularly. Thank you. John, did you want to address something right now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that basically after we listen to our public comment, not on the agenda, I think that the conversation would be more appropriate after that. So can we proceed with the public comment, please?
So here's the dilemma, John, is that, I don't
Well,
know why, it is that we cannot respond to any comments that are heard
Okay.
as that. And so I would prefer, and I think it is the right way to do it, to have our comments previously. And because I think you
Okay.
have great instincts anyway.
All right, here we go. All right. Obviously, right now, before public comment, and I don't know, we have an elephant in the room, and that's basically dealing with Park Street. I was visiting with Karen earlier when this meeting was coming together and all that stuff, and I see another commissioner present and a former commissioner present here, is the fact that the response to this decision has been not very well received. And I'm glad that, I guess this is the place to address it, is I'm not a backstabber or phony, so I'm just going to put it out there, is that basically probably 2 out of the 3 people are not happy with it. And we conversed, Karen and I conversed about that. Is the fact that, number one, they don't believe that the correct policy was followed for the facting that no matter what happened and happened down at the cribs, I call it the cribs or the Blue Range, basically was somewhat of a bailout that this building was demolished. And a couple other comments that I received and all that, and Karen and I visited about this, is the fact that basically they feel that these buildings can be repaired. And an example that they made is comparable from one person that I thought was very interesting was the O'Rourke edition, okay? Where basically that building was jacked up somewhat and the brick removed and replaced. And now I believe those apartments are selling very well to other people moving into the community. And another thing that came to my attention from these people is basically the facting, and I visited with Karen before attending the URA meeting, is the facting that these lots are a valuable asset to Butte-Silver Bowl, and that if these buildings were raised, that basically it would be a great place for development in Uptown Butte, all right? So it's my job as a commissioner to bring this back to the council. You know how it is, Danny and both Dans know how before the council, you always talk how things going here and all that. And I think there's still a lot of things to be answered to the public from the conversations that I've been having. Karen has volunteered to talk to these people, and I told her I can't get her number fast enough, you know. But I just don't want to be phony or not about it. I think definitely, and it is the elephant in the room, is we have a procedure, again, basically, that dealt with the blue range that was used on the, these two buildings on West Park. I've heard from a couple people that believe these buildings can be fixed, and that's when I questioned the individual, and then he reminded me of the O'Rourke and all that. I said it probably 2 or 3 times, and Karen said it too, we have to have a procedure. Every procedure has to be followed on these buildings and that. I realize that we have a code that basically a building can be designated as unsafe. A perfect example, the gentleman brought it up, is the fact that the commissioners or nobody could get into the blue range to take a look at what the situation was in there. Opening up the paper after our request on Sunday morning was the Montana Standard photographer and one of her friends or his friend and Larry Hoffman sitting there. So I think that people just want to be have a little bit more transparency, and I think they have some definite questions that need to be answered. And I think procedure is a, I guess, procedure makes business smooth, you know, and right now, no offense to Karen Burns, I like her energy, I like what's, you know, but the thing about it is we got to have a procedure. And Dan Callahan, the commissioner here, knows the time that we spent on the Blue Range, and then basically, you know, got wiped out over uninhabitable building. One question I had about, you know, being condemned and all that stuff was the thrift store, and they drove by there, and I received a follow-up for today on the phone call, and basically you're open and doing business. I mean, I get it, but the thing about it is, if it's uninhabitable, this, you know, this shouldn't be happening, or should it be happening in that? So these are just some of the concerns that I receive, and I'd like to put out there. I am not backstabbing anybody. I'm not trying to make things hard on anybody, but I think that we really, really have to do a lot better, and I think that we really, really have to satisfy the public and the taxpayers before we venture on through this process of how we're going to handle it throughout the other processes, if there are any. So I visited with a couple people from the historic preservation. I visited with Johnny White, so I visited Mitzi, tried to contact, and Mitzi actually reached out to me, is what is the process going to be here from now on? I noticed that Kate made a deal on this house that it's going to be run through the HPC. Is the HPC slighted? I would say yes, probably somewhat, but the deal is that it's confusing. Let's put it that way. It's very confusing. So my wish out of this, as being an old Butte boy, is the fact that I hope that this comes out favorable to both parties, but right now what I see is strict opposition as this procedure goes down the road. And I think we have to get better again the way that we do business, because one of these days that basically Butte-Silver Bow is going to, you know, get hit. And I love old buildings. I know you can't save them all. I think our record speaks for the amount of demolition permits that we have given on smaller jobs, homes and all that. But I've talked to other commissioners. I'm not going to carry on much more, but this is basically where it's at. And this is where it's going to be tomorrow night in those council chambers. And I just thought that I'd put it up front, and you know, and I talked to Karen about it, and I evaluated on it, and I just put it out there. Thank you.
Bobby?
I just would like to say thanks, John, and I'm glad that we are having this conversation now. And I just feel like it's going to be a very, very costly project to demolish, and that's taxpayer money. And I do believe that every effort should be made to see if someone would want these buildings. I mean, there couldn't be a better time for people to be interested in our old buildings. And to have this decision seemingly made so quickly, without a lot of due diligence, it doesn't seem, it seems like it should have come before us, and we should have had a presentation about it. And there should be an effort to put it out to a developer's packet and not rush. I don't understand what the hurry is. And I hope that the commissioners tomorrow night will vote to slow this down so that we can come up with a process and follow that process and be happy that the decision that does come out, whatever that decision is a measured, thoughtful decision and not some rush job with a huge block of our uptown district.
Never can. Thanks, Bobby. Anybody else have a comment? Because I certainly do. We have a procedure. What we need is a new procedure. Probably 8 years ago, there was a comprehensive historic preservation plan that was developed, and it had members from all different facets of our community. And among the things that was key, one of the, I think there were 10 talking points, was that there would be this engagement between departments in Butte-Silver so that things were discussed between department heads within that, and by extension, I think I would say, also there was an opportunity for discussion from the very people in this community that have been appointed by the chief executive to think about things that are historic preservation. That has not happened one iota in this entire process. And the new procedure needs to be going back to the procedure that was identified previously. What Bobby has said about this is a new day in Butte is absolutely true. John referred to the O'Rourke, but it's not just the O'Rourke. Things that were previously, would have been, in fact, 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, the O'Rourke was identified as unstable and could not stand. An appeal was made, and it continued to stand. And here, all these years later, we have a fantastic building, a fantastic project, somebody that's not afraid to spend millions of dollars to do a stabilization, when in fact we know that if it was, it actually had been red tagged previously, it had not had a, it hadn't been identified as a public nuisance, but if anybody had bothered to look, I'm sure they would have said that. And to be frank, the same could have happened for the Exerdance building. There's some serious structural issues. The owners have said, and I believe them, they are going to spend $15 million to bring that building back. Instead of closing the door to people who want to take buildings that are rough but still have some historic significance, we should be making the opportunity for them to do what is best for their business and for our community. And that's, I could go on, but those are, I guess, some of the things that I feel most strongly about. This, the procedure that we have now does not, let me just talk about 135, and then I think that would be my final comment. The reason why 135 North Park set this whole set of dominoes falling over was because county staff did not do their homework. And by that I mean, this whole thing is all about this party wall. And with minimum research, someone could have found out that there was a party wall and not even started the demolition or thought more carefully about what the demolition involved. But by not doing homework, it set this whole thing in motion that now is talking about threatening 3 buildings on that block. It is unconscionable. And that's it for me. Are there any other comments from the, in this member report section of the agenda? I really know how to close down a party. So the next issue is announcements. Are there any announcements other than what you've already covered in your staff report? Okay. So before adjournment, the final item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you want to make a comment at this time, please step forward, give your name and your address, turning the mic on, and know that we appreciate hearing from you, but we cannot respond to you. We're just listening, because that is the way our rule of order dictates it. So please come forward if you have a comment.
Good evening, my name is Cameron Boylan. I live at 208 South Washington Street. I had to say something about this East Park field because I was pretty closely involved with 135 East Park when I tried to buy it a couple years ago. And so that building I looked at very closely, and I can say with absolute certainty that there's absolutely no reason why it can't be taken down on its own. And this idea that a whole block of buildings has to be torn down because of one bad building is just completely ludicrous. I mean, you look at the shared wall on both sides, there's dozens of buildings uptown where one building was older and burned down or something, and the other building's still there. The most recent example is the M&M. The building to the north and the south of the M&M have the exact same style shared wall, and they just did exactly what needs to be done with 13 Park on the M&M. So there's no reason why it can't be done, and not only that, but it'd be a lot cheaper. It'd be a lot cheaper to just take down the one building, even if you didn't count the value of the buildings around it, and of course they're more valuable now than they ever have been. Everything's different now since COVID. All the values are way up on everything, and there's no reason why those buildings couldn't sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, meaning the thrift store buildings, the two large thrift store buildings. Those are excellent buildings. They've got good roofs on them. They're functional buildings. These are not derelict properties. And we're not talking millions of dollars to dress them up. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, and that includes stabilizing that wall. I mean, it's one of those things where it just is. It doesn't pencil out the way they're saying to do it. It's a lose-lose situation, and it could easily be a win-win situation. There's salvage companies that take them down for next to nothing compared to what they're talking about. So, to me, it's obvious there's something else going on here. Whether it's a parking lot people want, certain elements want, possibly for the Praxis Center, what have you. I just wish they'd come out with the real reason, because those buildings are absolutely fine that they're talking about tearing down. So that's what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cameron. Is there any other public comment at this time? John.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is nothing to do with the Park Street, but this is another question a few people are asking me. I'll use this one. That one doesn't work. There's some few people asking me about the old Montana Power building on Broadway. And the one section of the building right next to the Acoma, there's a for sale sign on that. And people have been asking me, how do they sell that when they got that whole building and that? And so I was just kind of curious and trying to pass this question on how that would work. I mean, are they going to get the market price for it or what? That I don't know. I'm just kind of everybody was asking me about that.
I think Karen probably knows the best. I've heard some rumors, so if she doesn't want to say, I'll spread some rumors.
Madam Chair, if it's appropriate for me to answer the question under public comment, I'm happy to answer, but otherwise I could address it after the meeting. I'm just asking procedure-wise.
We're in a gray area, and
Yeah.
I think I think we can still say we can be in the announcement stage. I mean, we just had an intermission. So I think that it would be appropriate for you to address John's question.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure it was okay. So what I can tell you is the property owner, Steve Grover, who represents Bitterroot Gateway Development and Montana Studios, when he purchased the property from us, his intention was to develop the entire structure, which is, you know, as everyone's familiar, 5 buildings that have been cobbled together over the years, creating a 115,000-ish square building that is a maze and a labyrinth of in places. In his due diligence in redeveloping the structure, it became very apparent that it would be more marketable if he was able to split the building into 3 separate buildings. He actually had a lot of architectural work done to see if you could physically separate the buildings back out into 5 buildings. Does not make sense. But into 3 structures, it does make sense. So he has done the work to separate all the systems of the building. The systems of the building are all in the center building. So the boilers and everything is all centralized, so they have to split those out. But he also went through the, I can't remember the right name of this process, but he created 3 parcels out of the 1. So he actually went through the planning department and went through the process of actually creating 3 separate parcels. So it's not condoed, it's actually now 3 separate structures that can be sold. And so he is looking at that as a way to, you know, fund investment in the rest of the buildings and selling off a portion of the structure that he owns. And he approached us early on that this was his idea and how he was going to move things forward, because things had stalled in his world of investors for, you know, lots of reasons, COVID being one of them. And so he was trying to make sure he could keep things moving. We were wholeheartedly supportive of that, because if we have 3 separate property owners and 3 separate buildings that are doing great things, you know, it makes sense to us. So that is what's happening with that piece of property.
I believe I have, as a member of this commission, the opportunity to call Dan Callahan forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wanting to make a comment here. I guess I should give my name, Dan Callahan. I'm a commissioner of District 12, and I just wanted to thank this committee and everybody that's worked so hard to keep this Basin Creek Reservoir project going forward. As you know, Mitzi and Jennifer and Mr. Olson and myself, we got a lot of sweat equity into that building already and a lot of time involved. And since I've been on the council, this has been something we've been trying to move forward with, and it's been a slow process. And I appreciate you guys' effort to keep this going, and let's get this thing over the top and get her done. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we're ready to adjourn before somebody else tries to mix up the order. You know, Steve always says we have to have a motion. I say we're adjourned.